On May 5th, coinciding with the Met Gala, the first week of an 8-week trial began in the federal case against P. Diddy, involving allegations of human trafficking for sexual exploitation and racketeering. The alleged victim and key initiator of the case is his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, who has already undergone examination in court. Both the prosecution and defense conducted cross-examinations, which turned out to be quite intense. Since she is currently in her 8th, almost 9th month of pregnancy, it was critical for the court to hear her testimony before she gives birth. Additional witness testimonies have also started to come in, so there's a lot to unpack today. Welcome to my channel, Room 13. Today, we're diving into the case against P. Diddy. One very important detail: the trial is being held behind closed doors. That means no cameras are allowed in the courtroom. This case differs significantly from public reputation trials like Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard or Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni, because this is a federal criminal case. Trials of this magnitude are never televised. All official updates come through comments from prosecutors and defense attorneys, as well as courtroom transcripts provided by accredited journalists who have been granted access. A courtroom transcript, in this context, means a journalist is physically present in the room, taking notes by hand or typing everything that's said. Frankly, I'm surprised we're even being given text transcripts. But the public interest in this case is so high that some form of transparency seems necessary just to keep rumors in check. Just like video cameras, photo cameras are strictly prohibited in the courtroom, which is why, instead of actual photos, we're seeing courtroom sketches. Now, as for sources, things are far from straightforward in the public domain right now. If you come across any documents or leaks, I strongly recommend double and triple checking them for accuracy. I tried to hack into the FBI database, but let's just say they've taken extra precautions this time. Still, there are a few sources I did manage to dig up that you can access too. For instance, there's a link to a public court archive where the trial is currently underway, and if you dig around there, you can uncover some interesting files. As of today, the most noteworthy publicly available documents are primarily 4 items. The main indictment filed against P. Diddy back in September, the individual indictments related to Casey, Lil Rod, Don Richard, and a sealed John Doe indictment. And that's pretty much it. Now, let's talk about what RICO charges actually are, and why they're so important to the government. RICO refers to organized crime. The acronym stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, a federal law enacted in the U.S. in 1970. Under the RICO Act, individuals are prosecuted not just for committing a single crime, but for participating in a criminal scheme as part of a group or enterprise. Think of it like that scene in The Godfather Part 2, where the FBI tries to corner the Corleone family and Michael testifies in that heavy courtroom atmosphere as the boss. RICO charges can be brought for acts of violence, extortion, human trafficking, or money laundering, if those crimes were committed as part of a coordinated, organized effort. This isn't about one person acting alone. It's about a boss figure who employs a network of associates to carry out a broader agenda. How and in what context those people are used, that's the core of it. In Diddy's case, the prosecution argues that he created an entire network involved in the exploitation of women. That's why he's being charged under RICO. Typically, RICO cases involve multiple defendants being tried together, but that's not the case here. At least, not yet. There's already been a joke going around that the case does have multiple defendants: P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, John Combs, all his alter egos. But of course, this is no laughing matter. These types of cases are extremely complex, filled with numerous incidents, testimonies, and documents. And ultimately, each side is trying to persuade a group of ordinary people, the 12 jurors who will decide whether the defendant is guilty or not. The trial is taking place at the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, located in Lower Manhattan. The proceedings are being presided over by Judge Aaron Subramanian. From here on, I'll refer to Diddy's legal team as the defense, and the other side, representing the victims, as the prosecution. The lead federal prosecutor on this case is Maureen Comey. Remember that name. She's the one heading the charge. "You can tell she doesn't sleep at night," said one courtroom reporter. According to several journalists present during the hearings, the entire prosecution team looked completely sleep-deprived, like they've been spending their nights buried in files and paperwork. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly the case. Maureen Comey is known for previously leading the prosecution against Ghislaine Maxwell and being involved in the federal case against Jeffrey Epstein. In other words, the government started with that particular circle, and now they're continuing to move through the rest of the network involved in the criminal enterprise.
The defense tried to suggest Ghislaine Maxwell just had no idea that her boyfriend and best friend for more than a decade had a thing for teenage girls. Ladies and gentlemen, that suggestion is borderline laughable. She was in the room, so of course she knew. Now it is time to hold her accountable.
So I don't think there's any need to panic if names like Jay-Z, Beyonce, Will Smith, even Oprah Winfrey start circulating in the media. Yes, there have been rumors and speculation about who's allegedly on some kind of list of potential suspects. But so far, we haven't reached that point. That said, I truly believe Maureen Comey will get there, and she won't let this go lightly. You can see it in her eyes. This case means something to her on a deeper level. She seems emotionally invested, and to me, it's obvious she's not walking away from this easily. Another interesting fact about the lead prosecutor. Maureen is what some would call a nepo baby in legal circles. She's the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey. But beyond her famous last name, she has serious credentials. She worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, one of the most prestigious placements for an up-and-coming federal prosecutor. Why does that matter? Because that office has jurisdiction over the financial capital of the country. It routinely handles high-stakes cases involving Wall Street and global corporations. The legal matters processed there are among the most complex and high-profile in the entire federal system. Maureen Comey also prosecuted another major case, that of Robert Haddon, the former Columbia University gynecologist accused of sexually abusing dozens of patients. So who else is part of this so-called six-pack of white women, as Diddy's attorney Mark Garagos somewhat sarcastically dubbed the prosecution team? Let's break down who they are. Emily Johnson, Assistant U.S. Attorney. Known for her strong presence during courtroom arguments, she's the one particularly pushing the narrative that Sean Combs leveraged his wealth, power, and connections to systematically exploit women. Meredith Foster, Assistant U.S. Attorney, previously worked on high-profile corruption cases, including one involving the head of New York's equivalent of public housing utilities, accused of accepting bribes from contractors. She also led the prosecution in the case against Antonio Scavino, again a corruption-related case. Corruption seems to be her legal focus. Christy Slavic, Assistant U.S. Attorney, specializes in narcotics and weapons trafficking. Her case history includes a number of drug and gun-related prosecutions. Notably, she handled the Trinitarios case, where she prosecuted a gang leader for the murder of a federal informant. Madison Reddick Smicer, Assistant U.S. Attorney. Her name came up in connection with a fraud case involving close to $1.5 million and misuse of USPS mailing systems. She has also prosecuted arms trafficking cases. Mitzi Steiner, Assistant U.S. Attorney. Although fewer public details are available, she rounds out the team with her own set of federal criminal case experience. Together, they form a formidable team with deep expertise in organized crime, financial fraud, corruption, trafficking, and violent offenses. It's clear this isn't a group assembled at random. They were chosen for exactly this type of case. Now let's talk about the defense, that is, Sean Combs' legal team. The two main figures to know here are Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Garagos. Mark Agnifilo is the lead attorney representing Sean Combs. He's known for defending Keith Raniere, the founder of the infamous NXYVM sex cult. Along with his wife Karen, who is also an attorney, he's currently handling the case of Luigi Mangione, the Italian national charged with murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So yes, that's the level we're talking about. This is the kind of clientele Mark Agnifilo typically takes on. In defending Combs, Agnifilo has publicly stated that what his client is being accused of amounts to nothing more than sexual preferences, not a federal crime. A questionable stance, to say the least.
There is a lifestyle called swinging, and that's the lifestyle my client Sean Combs led. The reason he did so was simple. It was common. It was popular.
According to the defense, things like the use of baby oil or lubricants aren't criminal acts under federal law. Everything, they claim, happened consensually. They're focusing heavily on the idea that everyone involved agreed to what was happening at the time. In short, the defense strategy hinges on discrediting the victims, suggesting that they were fully aware of what they were getting into, and that they benefited from their association with Diddy. That supposed mutual benefit, in their view, absolves him of legal responsibility. And yes, there's a nepo baby on the defense team too. Tenny Garagos, co-lead attorney and daughter of the well-known and media-savvy lawyer Mark Garagos. While her father is a practicing attorney, in this case, he's only acting as a legal consultant. That's an important distinction. Mark Garagos has represented some very high-profile clients in the past. For example, he defended Chris Brown after the assault on Rihanna, which resulted in Brown being sentenced to community service. He also represented Michael Jackson during the 2003 molestation allegations. He was Winona Ryder's attorney in 2002 during her infamous shoplifting case. Garagos also defended Scott Peterson and Jussie Smollett. So yes, he definitely has a certain kind of reputation. Now, to be fair, I don't think it's legally accurate to say that one lawyer always defends the bad guys and another only defends the good guys. That's not really how the legal system works. But opinions about Mark Garagos do vary. On top of that, Garagos is good friends with Harvey Levin and co-hosts a podcast called Two Angry Men on TMZ. In the most recent episode, Mark outright said that Diddy is his friend. And that, of course, raises serious questions. While it's true that Garagos is not officially representing Diddy in this current case, he is consulting on it and has represented Diddy in previous legal matters. That creates a potential conflict of interest. Judge Aaron Subramanian addressed this directly last week. He reprimanded Garagos and warned him that the court would be monitoring the podcast closely, listening to what he says, and that there must be no further incidents like this. The judge issued that reprimand to Mark Garagos after he referred to the prosecution team as, quote, a six-pack of white women. Thanks to Garagos and his loose tongue, we also found out something else. Each of Diddy's attorneys is reportedly charging around $10 million to represent him and provide legal services. So, who agreed to come on board for that price tag? Alexandra Shapiro, a seasoned appellate specialist. Brian Steele, who represented rapper Young Thug in what became the longest-running criminal trial in the history of the state of Georgia. And Xavier Donaldson, a former Bronx prosecutor with extensive experience defending clients in murder, rape, and domestic violence cases. On the second day of the trial, May 6th, another member was added to Diddy's legal team, Nicole Westmoreland. She is a survivor of sexual violence herself. Observers believe she was brought onto the team for a strategic reason. As a black woman and a survivor, she fills a gap in the defense's optics, particularly in the eyes of the jury. The first days of the trial were focused entirely on jury selection, which even led to a delay in the formal start of proceedings. So, clearly, how the defense presents itself in front of the jury matters. Continuing with Diddy's legal lineup, Anna Esteval was actively involved in cross-examining the prosecution's witnesses. She's a partner at the New York-based law firm Harris Trzaskoma and previously served as a federal public defender in California. Another team member is Jason Driscoll, a junior attorney contributing to the case. It's clear that this defense team was assembled with a very specific purpose: strong experience in federal litigation and a track record in appeals at the Supreme Court level, indicating they are fully preparing for the worst-case scenario. So, how is the defense building its narrative? Because at the end of the day, they have to stick to a cohesive storyline, one that will convince the jury that Cassie, or the other alleged victims, are either not credible or, worse, somehow to blame. In cases involving sexual violence, the most brutal and, unfortunately, most effective strategy used by defense attorneys is this: they consented. It's a harsh and deeply manipulative approach, but one that's often deployed when defending someone accused of sexualized crimes. And it's clear that this is exactly the path Diddy's team is taking. They are working to cast doubt on the victims' reliability, questioning their motives, and framing the relationships as consensual, mutually beneficial even. It's not a new tactic, but it's a calculated one. And in the high-stakes environment of a federal courtroom, narrative control is everything. Victim blaming is a phenomenon in which the victim of a crime, accident, illness, or any form of violence is held fully or partially responsible for what happened to them. In many cases, victim blaming takes the form of racist, sexist, or classist assumptions. This behavior is closely tied to the psychological concept known as the just world belief. This is the idea that the world is inherently fair, and therefore, bad things only happen to people who somehow deserve it. It's a way for people to protect themselves from the uncomfortable truth that terrible things can happen to anyone, at any time, without reason or fairness. By blaming victims, people construct a false sense of security, believing that if they simply behave correctly, they can avoid becoming victims themselves. It's a cognitive distortion that offers emotional comfort at the expense of truth and empathy. For example, during her cross-examination of Cassie Ventura, defense attorney Anna Esteval began with the question, "If this relationship was abusive, why did you keep going back to Sean Combs over the course of 11 years? In response, Cassie said she had feelings for him at the time. She trusted him, respected him, and believed that participating in his sexual fantasies, including the so-called freak-off parties, was part of her responsibility in the relationship. She felt that she had signed up for it, that it was her role to fulfill. She tried to explain that she loved this person, that she believed in him. She also reminded the court that she was very young when it all started. Honestly, it's both disturbing and deeply sad that the defense seems unable to build their case without blaming the very women their client is accused of abusing. I've genuinely tried to approach this case with an open mind. But when a lawyer starts blaming a teenage girl for being manipulated by a powerful adult man, and then follows that up by interrogating what kind of benefit she might have gotten from the abuse, it's infuriating, to say the least. The way they nitpick her words, saying things like, "But you said you loved him. You said you were happy." It's like arguing with an ex who ignores the core issue and fixates only on the fragments of the story that serve their own narrative. Now let's talk about who was present in the courtroom on behalf of the families. On the very first day of the trial, Monday, all of Sean Combs' children were in attendance. They entered the courtroom holding hands, walking in together as a show of unity. His mother, Janice Combs, was also present, and she has continued to attend every session, sometimes arriving later in the day. However, as the witness testimonies grew increasingly graphic, horrifying, and traumatic, Diddy's daughters chose to leave the courtroom and have not returned since. On Cassie's side, her husband Alex Fine was there during the first week, along with her mother and her attorney. From Diddy's family, the courtroom saw not only his mother Janice, but also his sons, Christian Combs, Quincy Brown, and Justin Combs. While his daughters were present early in the week, they stopped attending by the end of it. A note on Quincy Brown: he is the biological son of Kim Porter and another man, but was raised and adopted by Diddy. There has been widespread speculation in public comments online, suggesting that Quincy is somehow a hostage to this situation, trapped in a legacy he didn't choose. Some even go so far as to suggest that Kim Porter's death was connected to Diddy. These are unverified rumors, of course, but it's worth noting that many people in comment threads have pleaded with Quincy to go back to your real father and distance himself from the mess. One widely circulated sketch from the courtroom shows Diddy forming a heart shape with his hands, a gesture believed to have been directed toward his children. You've probably seen that image online. There have been several eyewitness accounts describing Sean Combs' behavior in the courtroom. During Cassie's testimony, witnesses say he kept his eyes fixed on her the entire time. She, on the other hand, never looked at him. Her husband, however, reportedly stared him down, locking eyes with Diddy throughout. Another thing noted, Diddy would often turn to his sons, nod at them, and say, my sons," with a smile, as if drawing emotional strength from their presence. His mother, Janice Combs, has been actively supporting him ever since his arrest and the first wave of allegations. In 2024, she spoke publicly in his defense, saying, "My son is not the monster they portray him to be." She also expressed her frustration that people were judging him without fully understanding the facts or waiting for a fair trial. And so, she sits in that courtroom day after day, even through the detailed, graphic, and disturbing descriptions of what her son allegedly forced his victims to endure. She has remained there through all of it. Now, let's talk about what exactly Diddy's mother had to sit through in court, what the witnesses said out loud, under oath. I'll be including links to various sources and materials I used in preparing this video. Not only can you read them yourself, but I believe you absolutely should. Read them to form your own understanding. I've tried to present this as neutrally as possible, but I won't pretend to be fully detached. I stand with Cassie. I stand with the victims. So no, this can't be emotionless, not entirely. But if you want the raw, unfiltered source material, it's all linked. Make sure you check it out so you don't miss anything. It was crucial to have Cassie testify during the first week of the trial, because immediately afterwards she was scheduled to give birth. That week, she underwent both direct and cross-examination by the prosecution and the defense. This process is formally known as cross-examination. After her testimony, she left to deliver her third child, a baby boy, as was later confirmed publicly. It's hard to even imagine what it must have felt like to be heavily pregnant, under extreme emotional stress, and then forced to revisit deeply traumatic experiences. To not only testify in such a high-profile federal case, but to dig through every painful detail, essentially turning your soul inside out in front of a courtroom. While the prosecution might treat a witness like Cassie with some degree of care, the defense will not. Their job is to go after every inconsistency, drag every personal detail into the light, and suggest, often very directly, that she bears some kind of responsibility. And let's be honest, they're being paid tens of millions of dollars to do just that, over $10 million per attorney. You can imagine the pressure to deliver results. Cassie began testifying on Monday and concluded on Friday, May 13th. In total, she spent over 20 hours on the stand that week. After finishing her testimony and leaving to give birth, her lawyer, Douglas Wigdor, read a statement on her behalf. Here is the full quote from Cassie Ventura.
I want to thank everyone who has supported me over the years, especially in these last few days. Your kind words, your love, and your encouragement have helped carry me through this. I hope that by sharing my story, I can help other survivors feel less alone and inspire them to find their own voice. For me, the more I heal, the more I remember. And the more I remember, the more I know I will never forget. I will not forget this experience, and I hope it can help someone else. Thank you.
During cross-examination, Cassie Ventura testified that in 2013, Diddy took her phone away after suspecting her of dancing with Chris Brown. He was reportedly jealous of Brown and acted out of possessiveness.
At one point, Chris Brown's name was brought up, and it was mentioned in the context of Combs' defense team saying, you both would get jealous. And at one point, Diddy got jealous because you were dancing with Chris Brown at some sort of a nightclub or an event, and he took your phone, and he wanted to see what was in your phone. So this is one of many instances that we're hearing about jealousy. We've also heard from the prosecutors that Combs was incredibly jealous when Cassie at one point was dating Kid Cudi, when she was dating actor Michael B. Jordan.
The defense also played an audio recording from 2013, in which Cassie Ventura is heard yelling at a man saying, "I will fuck you up." This man apparently had a video recording of her at one of the freak-off parties, and she was terrified it might leak. She reportedly shouted that she would destroy him if the footage got out. It's unclear why the defense chose to highlight this particular incident. Are they trying to suggest that Cassie has some kind of tendency toward threats or violence? Because honestly, what it really shows is fear. A woman trying desperately to protect herself from blackmail. Cassie has repeatedly said that Diddy used these party videos to manipulate and trap her, threatening to release them if she didn't comply. This recording actually supports that narrative, not undermines it. In another piece of evidence shown by the defense, Cassie allegedly agrees to participate in a freak-off party with another woman. The message they quoted reads, "I'm always ready to freak off," in response to Diddy asking when she wanted to do it again. The defense made her read these messages aloud in court, attempting to prove that her participation was fully consensual. We can clearly see their strategy here, right? And then there was another message, where Cassie allegedly said, "I don't want this to be the last freak-off." Another quote the defense presented to suggest she was not only compliant, but enthusiastic. But viewed in context, considering the power imbalance, the manipulation, and the threats, these statements lose their simplicity. They are not evidence of true consent. They are evidence of a woman trying to survive inside a system she couldn't control. All text messages and private communications between Cassie and Diddy were made public on May 16th, following the conclusion of the first week of the trial.
Mia said you're going to be a while, so I'm going to head home. As much as you think that you're Bruce Willis, you aren't. He's married and before he was married. The family as a whole went on trips together, or just with him and his woman. Eddie Murphy and Paige took his kids away on their own. He didn't go with his ex. Because that's not who he's in love with. I've been at the edge of tears this whole week. I don't think that you sympathize with my feelings. I understand you feeling like you need to protect your children, but after a while, it's like for what? They've never known you and Kim to be together, unless there's something that I just don't know about. They were babies when we started dating. If Chance can go away with her dad and not her mom, I think the other kids can too. The more time that goes by, the harder it is to understand. I'm here ready to be that woman, and I'm in a constant fight because you won't ever allow it. This isn't what I want. I can't become that woman this way. I'm bracing myself for pictures that are going to break my heart.
Man, I'm going to spend time with my kids. I'm sorry you feel that way. I won't let no pics be taken.
Well, I hope that you enjoy the kids. I don't trust that after the type of sexual relationship you've had with me. You had that with her and have in the recent past. Today I texted you that I wish we could have freak off before you left, by the way. All good. That was what I didn't get to say, so I'm done venting. Thank you for hearing me out somewhat. Hope you don't shut your phone down like you said you were going to. That would really break my heart. I love you. Please don't stress me or what's going on with me. You're right. I need to take care of myself. Even though I was sick, I heard you last night. The stuff about baby mamas, kids, taking care of everyone, etc. I don't want to be another burden. I was really excited about last night. I have no idea what happened. Anyway, I do think you need time. Let's do our stuff separate this weekend if that helps, and then you just hit me when you need me. I love you and I understand. Every time I have the opportunity to take care of you, something happens. It's so weird. I really have been thinking about you and fixing things with you so much.
Just hit me when you get yourself together. It's not on me, it's on you. Hit me when you're ready for me.
Jaguar Wright was spotted outside the courthouse, though, to be clear, her presence doesn't indicate she was formally summoned or involved in the proceedings. Jaguar Wright is a singer who was active in the music industry during the same era as Diddy. She's become known for giving numerous interviews and recording podcasts centered around the accusations against him, often saying things like, "Oh, just wait. The real stuff is coming. This one will go to jail, and so will that one. Get ready." That's her. Let's also pause for a quick timeline check, because it's important to understand some context. The last time Cassie Ventura saw Sean Combs in person was in 2018, at the funeral of his former partner and mother of his children, Kim Porter. Many observers of this case have publicly called for a deeper investigation into Kim Porter's death, which they claim seemed suspicious, both in timing and circumstances. So again, Cassie and Diddy haven't seen each other in 7 years. In her testimony, Cassie told the court that she and Sean Combs began their relationship when she was 19 years old, and he was 38. She signed a 10-album contract with him in 2006. According to Cassie, their relationship began when she was, in her own words, very sexually inexperienced. "I didn't even have the vocabulary to describe some of the things we were talking about, or doing." When asked why she stayed with him, she answered, "He was an interesting, fun, successful guy who also had full control over my career."
Good morning to my queen. Have the greatest day of your life, and get a lot of work done. Go.
I'll do Jade and Mike Will Fauntleroy.
And the Madonna.
So in what order? I don't think I'm going to be able to finish 4 songs today.
That's for next 2 to 3 days.
Oh, okay.
"It was a special feeling. I felt special," Cassie told the court. At that time, not many people were spending that much personal time with him. She went on to describe how their first intimate encounter took place on a yacht in Miami. "I'd say that after that, we were together. Looking back now, I realize I just became one of his girls." For a while, she said, she tried to fully absorb and adapt to the lifestyle around him, and did so very quickly. She compared it to a teenager entering a new friend group or new school and doing anything to fit in as fast as possible. "I really fell for him. We had fun. It felt like my first adult relationship. Or at least, I thought it was. It was so different from anything I'd imagined. His lifestyle was worlds away from mine." As for her support system, the one that in many ways gave her the strength to confront all of this, it starts with her husband, Alex Fine. Cassie and Alex now share a life and children together, and it's clear he's been a crucial emotional anchor during this process. Interestingly, the defense filed a motion asking the court to remove Alex Fine from the courtroom, claiming he was being aggressive towards Sean Combs. The judge denied that motion, and honestly, it makes sense. Why should he be the one to leave when Cassie remains there, facing everything head-on? If anything, his presence is a source of stability for her, especially amid the deeply disturbing evidence and testimony being presented. Still, the defense team pushed hard to have him removed, making it yet another moment of courtroom tension. On May 17th, following the conclusion of his wife's testimony, Alex Fine issued what appears to be his first, and possibly final, public statement regarding the trial. Here is what he said.
Over the past 5 days, the world has witnessed the strength and courage of my wife, who freed herself from her past. There has been a lot of speculation online about what I must have felt while sitting there, listening to my wife's testimony. The truth is, I felt many emotions. I felt immense pride and boundless love for Cass. I felt deep anger that she had to sit across from the man who tried to break her. So to him, and to anyone who helped him along the way, know this. You failed. You did not break her spirit. You did not take away her smile, the one that lights up every room. You did not destroy the soul of the mother who gives the best hugs and plays the best games with our little girls. You did not crush the woman who made me a better man. I didn't save Cassie, as some people have said. Saying that disrespects the years of painful work she did to save herself. Cassie saved Cassie. She freed herself from abuse, coercion, threats, and cruelty. She fought demons that only a demon could create. All I did was love her, the way she loves me. Her life is now filled with love, laughter, and our family. This terrible chapter is forever behind us, and we will not be making any further public statements. We are grateful for all the love and support we've received, and we kindly ask for privacy as we welcome our son into a world that is now safer because of his mother.
I swear, when I first read those final words of his statement, I got chills. And even now, reading them again with you, I feel it all over again. But if you think that was the most moving show of support Cassie received from her husband and his family, then you haven't yet read what his mother, Pam Fine, wrote. Cassie's mother-in-law publicly said, "I'm proud that the most loving and courageous woman I know is raising my granddaughters." I don't know about you, but those words hit me like a wave. It's the perfect combination of truth and clarity, so direct, so precisely said. It's no surprise that a woman who raised such a son, a man like Alex Fine, would also be a woman of strength herself. What many people may not know is that Pam Fine is also a survivor of domestic violence. In fact, Alex once ran a charity marathon in honor of both his mother and his wife, raising funds for organizations supporting survivors of abuse. He's about to welcome a son into the world, but for now, he is a father to daughters. And it feels like this man has already witnessed more female pain, stood beside it, held it, protected it, than most people will in a lifetime. He didn't shy away from Cassie's trauma. According to testimonies, she still carries echoes of her past, habits and reactions that only a deeply hurt person would have. There was even an incident where she attempted to walk into traffic in what appeared to be a suicide attempt. Alex pulled her back. A car nearly hit her. People say Alex Fine fixed what he didn't break. And that, I think, says everything. So what else did Cassie Ventura reveal during her testimony? She spoke about a 2018 incident in which, according to her, Diddy raped her. She testified that after a dinner with Sean Combs, his behavior changed. He acted strange, distant, and later that night, he sexually assaulted her. Cassie also recounted how her husband reacted after learning what had happened. She said he punched a wall with his fist, but Cassie didn't only speak about her own pain. She also described the freak-off parties that Diddy hosted with his friends and inner circle. He was obsessive about appearances, she said, particularly disliking dry skin. He would repeatedly insist on applying baby oil again and again. Here's where it gets even more disturbing. During cross-examination, the defense tried to paint Cassie as a participant, even a co-conspirator in those events, because she was the one, they said, who would heat the oil used during those parties. Of course, what the defense didn't mention is that Cassie was barely more than a child when all this began. Her brain wasn't even fully developed. Her frontal lobe, the part responsible for judgment and self-protection, hadn't matured. And now they were using her compliance, as a teenager groomed and dominated, as supposed evidence of guilt. Cassie was forced to walk the court through the full routine of what a freak-off party looked like. It started with oil and touching, she said. Then it would move into oral sex, and eventually full intercourse. I often tried to rush through those first steps. She described how she would wear outfits from sex shops, slip into a tub filled with baby oil, while Diddy watched, giving directions. Yes, he preferred to watch. And often, they brought in outside professionals, people from the escort industry, to assist. Cassie explained, "During the first year of our relationship, Sean introduced me to this idea he called voyeurism, where he would watch me engage in sexual activity with a third person. These people could be either men or women." When Diddy first proposed the idea of a freak-off party, Cassie testified,
I remember my heart just sinking. I felt nervous and confused. I had just turned 22. I was unsettled, unsure, but I also loved him deeply and wanted to make him happy. I quickly realized that these freak-offs weren't something I actually wanted to be doing, especially not as regularly as they began happening. But I was in love and I wanted to please him. Eventually, I reached a point where I felt like I had no choice. I had no idea what it would all turn into. At the time, Sean controlled most aspects of my life, my career, my clothes, who I spoke to. I didn't feel like I had a voice. I was so young, so naive. And I just wanted to please the people around me.
What's striking is that even as she described all this pain, Cassie still found space to reflect on the affection she once felt for him. She often paused to explain how she had felt in the moment, offering a surprisingly clear articulation of that internal contradiction many abuse survivors face. How can the person I love be the source of everything that's hurting me? She put it this way.
I never wanted him to feel judged by me, but I did want him to know that what he was doing made me feel terrible, worthless, like I had nothing else to offer.
She also testified about more controlling behavior, how he influenced her decisions about her body, including encouraging her to get nipple piercings and even genital piercings. He even came with me to the piercing appointment, she said. But perhaps the most disturbing incident she described was one of extreme humiliation. According to Cassie, during one freak-off party, Diddy ordered a male escort to urinate on her, specifically in her mouth. She made it clear this was not consensual. There was no discussion, no warning. He just wanted it in the moment, and it happened, she said. When asked directly if she had wanted it, she answered firmly, no, and she clarified.
The issue wasn't that I didn't know the man. It's that I didn't want anyone to urinate on me, period.
And yes, if you're feeling overwhelmed or shaken reading this, you're not alone. This is horrifying material. But if we're going to talk about this case truthfully, then we have to confront the full weight of what was said in court. Cassie told her story in full. The least we can do is listen. Cassie explained that in many moments during the assaults, she physically couldn't ask the escorts to stop, even when things became unbearable. It was hard to speak up, considering the position I was in, she said. She described being pinned down to the floor, unable to move freely.
I would raise my hands. Sean saw it. That was literally all I could do while lying on the floor, because my mouth was full of too much foreign fluid.
Let's pause here, because this is crucial. Cassie never denied that her mental state during many of these events was altered, heavily impacted by the use of substances. She acknowledged that her mind was fogged, her judgment impaired, and that too was part of the system of coercion she found herself trapped in. Cassie also listed the specific locations where these freak-off parties took place. In New York, Gramercy Hotel, Trump Hotel, Intercontinental, in Miami and Miami Beach, Mandarin, Oriental Fantome Beau in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills Hotel, Shutters on the beach. I had no idea where this would eventually lead, she said, but I felt responsible. He was sharing something with me, so I felt like I had to go along. I was expected to describe what I saw in detail, because that turned him on. It was humiliating, but eventually it became normal. According to Cassie, the sexual encounters took many forms. Sometimes it was just her and Sean Combs. Other times he would simply watch her with other people. When asked how these sessions typically ended, Cassie said, sometimes he'd say, let's go to another room and finish there. Other times, the escorts would be paid less if the ending wasn't what he had pictured in his fantasy. She explained that it wasn't just about her participation. It also meant I had to find and hire the escorts and organize the whole thing so I could perform in front of Sean. 2017. The court was shown a series of messages from that year. In one, Cassie wrote that she was excited, saying she couldn't wait for an upcoming freak-off party. In another, she mentioned she had forgotten her iPad, the very device she explained under oath on which many of these marathons were recorded. Those recordings, she said, were later used to blackmail her. Jurors also saw a message from Diddy, where he wrote, "Have fun. Impress me." Sent as Cassie was on her way to shop for props and outfits for the party. On May 26, 2017, Cassie and Diddy exchanged messages about a trip to Pleasure Chest, a sex shop. Under oath, she confirmed that she often bought oils, costumes, and other gear from there specifically for these events. She made one especially heartbreaking admission. Meeting with escorts, those smaller one-on-one encounters, actually felt like a break. Compared to the freak-offs, which she said were absolute chaos, those moments were a reprieve. Cassie explained that recovering physically from freak-off parties could take several days. Freak-offs became a job. There was no space for anything else except recovering and trying to feel normal again before the next one. They involved staying awake for days, using certain substances, drinking heavily, and having sex with strangers, sometimes for days on end. One of the longest parties lasted 4 days, she said. Among the escorts involved in those encounters were individuals like Jules, named in court documents, and Daniel Phillip, who has also testified and is not an anonymous witness in the case. As of today, Daniel Phillip is 41 years old. He is one of the escorts who worked with Cassie, and he testified in court about several disturbing incidents he witnessed firsthand. He recalled one occasion when Cassie and Diddy went into a separate room, and not long after, he heard screaming from behind the door. Cassie then came out, jumped into his lap, and, as he described, was visibly shaking. She looked terrified. He also spoke about another encounter at the Essex House Hotel in New York City, where he was present with both Cassie and Diddy. According to Daniel, he lost his erection during an argument between Sean and Cassie. The situation became tense, and the energy shifted entirely. "I just lost the vibe," he said. Diddy became furious, and Cassie appeared frightened. Eventually, Daniel and Cassie began kissing, and things started heading in the direction Sean had orchestrated. But then Diddy walked in and saw them. Daniel said he was paid $6,000 for these sessions with Cassie, and that Sean Combs would watch them. He also shared that he and Cassie developed a connection, or at least something that resembled it. He felt sorry for her, and they talked a lot. After the incident at the Essex house, Daniel said, "I really wanted to help her, but there was nothing I could do. I was in total shock. She was scared. I could see the fear in her face, and I could tell she had been crying a lot." As the second week of the trial began, new materials and evidence were released, some of which included photographs that were circulated through the media. Among the newly presented images were photos of Cassie's bruises, clearly showing visible injuries on her body. These correspond to the period she described as the height of the freak-off parties, a time when she was more involved in that lifestyle than in her actual music career. Photos of bottles of baby oil, containers of medications or unknown substances, many of which appear to be illegal drugs. So why do these photos matter? These images depict items recovered by police from Sean Combs' hotel room when he was arrested in September 2024. They are not symbolic. They're physical evidence that matches exactly what Cassie described under oath. This was the equipment, the props she spoke of. Also found during the arrest, a bundle of cash totaling $9,000. This matches earlier testimony. Daniel Phillip, the escort, said he was paid between several hundred to $6,000 per session. The cash seized could easily reflect the going rate for such services, adjusted, of course, for inflation. One of the more disturbing discoveries was the huge quantity of Johnson's baby oil. Yes, the exact brand Cassie had described. Understandably, the brand likely isn't pleased to be associated with this, but it is, undeniably, what was used. Also found were various forms of contraception and enhancement products, all consistent with the heavily staged and choreographed nature of these gatherings. As Cassie herself put it, the oil was just as important as everything else. We poured it over our bodies so they would shine. The oil was always warmed, and if Sean thought we were too dry, he'd let you know, "You need to shine, you need to glow." The parties were meticulously staged. She recalled one instance involving an inflatable pool filled entirely with baby oil. "I climbed into it fully clothed, shoes and all. It was actually pretty dangerous," she said. Cassie also testified that she was often expected to participate even while menstruating.
How's your day?
I'm good. Need you to go to doc.
Yes, we did a lot.
What you mean?
A lot of dicks, a lot of partying.
So you feel sick? I'm sorry.
Why you sorry?
How are you vocals going?
They're good. I have those sores on my tongue, so it's kind of uncomfortable, and I think I have another urinary tract infection.
Over time, as Cassie testified, all of the freak-off parties and escort encounters became part of a system of blackmail. Diddy filmed everything, and whenever they fought, or whenever she threatened to leave him, he would use the tapes to intimidate her. One of Diddy's attorneys, Mark Agnifilo, whom we discussed earlier, formally requested that the court allow the release of these videos and photos, including images of Cassie Ventura in sexually explicit positions and situations. In court, he told Judge Arun Subramanian, "There is no part of these videos that isn't, by its nature, adult pornography. They all depict people either nude, having sex, or about to have sex." And most disturbingly, the judge did not immediately reject this request. As of now, the materials have not been released, but Cassie's legal team strongly opposes their publication, for obvious reasons. If these videos are unsealed, there's every likelihood they will leak into the public sphere. Cassie's fear is not only justified, it is historically proven. When asked about the videos used for blackmail, Cassie was visibly shaken on the stand. She explained, "He told me the videos would destroy everything I'd worked for. that they'd make me look like a whore, that I'd be ashamed, that no one would ever take me seriously again. And here's the chilling truth. Predators like Diddy understand exactly how the world thinks. They know how people will react. They know that public judgment often punishes the victim more than the perpetrator. And that's the leverage they use. It's the same leverage defense attorneys rely on, turning those societal blind spots and hypocrisies into courtroom strategies. Let's be clear. None of these lawyers would ever wish this on their own daughters, wives, or sisters. And yet, they will still stand in court and make these arguments, because that's the system. And it's not just the law, it's a jury trial. Real people, 12 of them, will decide Sean Combs' fate. There's even a courtroom sketch that captured Cassie leaving the stand after testifying, never once looking at Diddy. Why is this case being tried at the federal level and in front of a jury? Because this is a criminal case, not a civil lawsuit. Under federal criminal law in the United States, the accused is entitled to a trial by jury, according to the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, especially when the charges are this serious. Sean Combs is facing felony-level charges, including crimes that carry the possibility of lengthy prison terms or even life imprisonment. In theory, Combs could have waived his right to a jury trial and opted instead for what's called a bench trial, where the case would be decided solely by a judge. But his legal team chose the jury route, likely seeing it as a chance to leverage emotion, ambiguity, and doubt, especially by exploiting victim blaming, inconsistencies in testimony, or moments of uncertainty in witnesses' stories. Now back to Cassie's testimony. She revealed that Diddy forced her to call him Pop Pop, a name that appears in several of their private messages, including the now widely circulated one. "You hungry, Pop Pop?" Pop Pop is a term that literally means grandpa. Cassie had originally told Sean that she used to call her grandfather that, and that's precisely why he made her use it for him. "He wanted me to come up with a nickname for him," she said. "Now I just think it was incredibly disrespectful to my actual grandfather." She didn't feel she could object, because the overall tone of their relationship, as she described it, was one where aggression could surface at any moment. She explained that something in his eyes would change, something unrecognizable, and that she often found herself minimizing situations or trying to de-escalate his moods. When asked directly if there was physical violence in the relationship, Cassie responded, "Yes, and more than once." She said, "He hit me in the head, knocked me off my feet, dragged me, kicked me, stomped on my head when I fell. I had bumps on my forehead, split lips, swollen eyes. The whites of my eyes were red. I had bruises all over my body." She added that even years later, many of those photos still exist, photos that clearly show bruises on her face and body. At that point in her testimony, Prosecutor Emily Johnson asked Cassie, how often did the physical abuse happen? Cassie's answer, too often. Meanwhile, during the second week of the trial, several new witnesses took the stand, among them Dawn Richard, who is considered one of the most important witnesses for the prosecution, second only to Cassie herself. Dawn Richard has accused Sean Combs of sexually assaulting her, claiming he once stormed into her dressing room and groped her breasts and buttocks. She also testified that she was a direct witness to his abuse of Cassie Ventura. Dawn Richard is a former member of the girl groups Danity Kane and Dirty Money, both of which were connected to Diddy's music label. She recounted an incident from 2009 when, according to her testimony, Diddy attacked Cassie over an argument about eggs. Apparently, Cassie had prepared his breakfast in a way he didn't approve of. Dawn described the confrontation in detail. He hit her in the head, he kicked her, then he wrapped his hands around her neck and dragged her up the stairs by her hair. The next day, she says, Diddy invited her and another bandmate to the studio and tried to reframe the incident. He allegedly told them that what they saw was a sign of passion and warned them that anyone who talks too much can disappear from his life. There are several key takeaways from the allegations made by Dawn Richard. First, it's important to note that there are two separate dimensions to her accusations. The first involves her financial and professional dispute with Sean Combs, as a producer who, according to her, failed to pay her fairly and did not uphold his contractual obligations, despite her fulfilling her part of the work. The second is much more serious and personal, a civil lawsuit filed by Dawn Richard accusing Diddy of sexual harassment, emotional abuse, and physical misconduct. You can find the full civil complaint filed by Dawn Richard, linked in the description of this content. Dawn was called as a witness in the current criminal case, but her civil claims exist separately. Beyond money, Dawn alleges that Diddy regularly humiliated her, forced her to undress to her underwear, verbally degraded her, and groped her without consent, including the previously mentioned incident where he stormed into her dressing room and touched her breasts and buttocks. In 2010, in Glasgow, she says Diddy offered her fake breasts as a Christmas gift, grabbing her chest and saying, "Right now, you're an A, but I want a D." Dawn also gave extensive testimony regarding Sean Combs' physical abuse of Cassie, much of which she witnessed firsthand. She stated that other celebrities were present during one such instance, specifically naming Usher and Ne-Yo. According to Dawn, during a dinner with friends, attended by Diddy, Cassie, Usher, Ne-Yo, herself, and others, Sean punched Cassie in the stomach. Another incident took place at Diddy's home before a planned performance by their group, Dirty Money, during a festival in Central Park. She recalled being in the bathroom with Kalena Harper and Cassie Ventura getting ready. Suddenly, she heard a scream. Looking out, she saw Sean Combs strike Cassie in the face with a closed fist. Cassie, she said, began crying, rushed back into the bathroom, and tried to cover the bruise with makeup. She performed at the festival wearing sunglasses to conceal the injury. According to Dawn, she and Kalena Harper wore sunglasses in solidarity. It's been reported that the defense team attempted to limit the scope of Dawn's testimony in court, filing multiple objections, some of which were sustained by the judge. The defense argued that Dawn's statements were fueled by hearsay or personal resentment, and that they lacked direct connection to the federal charges against Combs. Still, Dawn provided chilling quotes attributed to Diddy during abusive episodes. "You bitches want to die today? You could be missing." In 2010, Dawn Richard testified that Sean Combs' security guards locked her inside his Bentley, a car without internal door handles, leaving her trapped in the dark, without heat. She said she genuinely believed they were going to make her disappear. Terrified, she called her father, who drove all the way from Baltimore to get her out. When Sean Combs found out, he told her, "Think about your family. You don't call your dad unless you're in the hospital." Dawn also accused Diddy of labor exploitation, pushing her to physical and mental exhaustion. She recalled him yelling things like, "You bitches don't want to work, this is what it takes to be great." She went on to allege that Diddy hosted parties involving underage girls, where illegal substances were openly used and unconscious participants were sexually exploited. At those parties, phones were confiscated, doors were guarded. Leaving was not an option. From a legal perspective, cross-examination is where a witness's credibility is put under the sharpest scrutiny. And in Dawn Richard's case, that was exactly what happened. The defense attorney, Nicole Westmoreland, the new addition to Diddy's team, led the questioning. She pointed out that Dawn's statements had allegedly changed 4 times over the years, implying that she was an unreliable witness. This is a standard tactic: cast doubt, suggest inconsistency, and imply ulterior motives. Dawn responded that she has done her best to reconstruct traumatic events from over a decade ago as accurately as she can. Still, the defense tried to reframe her involvement as revenge for a failed music career. Their aim? To convince the jury that her civil lawsuit against Diddy was never about justice, but about personal retaliation. Of course, that's a narrative the defense wants the jury to believe, but the sheer detail, duration, and trauma in Dawn's testimony tells another story entirely. How Cassie Ventura commented on that horrific assault video from the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. That video of the assault, released publicly by Cassie's team last year, shocked even those already familiar with the allegations. But what was especially important was hearing her own account in court of what happened after he grabbed her and dragged her back into the hotel room. "We were having a party, and Jules was one of the escorts," Cassie said. "I decided to leave while Diddy was in the shower. I'm not exactly sure what happened next. Sean hit me. I had a black eye, and at that moment, all I could think about was getting out alive, because I had work obligations. I had a premiere coming up, and I couldn't afford to have my face messed up. I grabbed my things and ran as fast as I could. I made it to the elevators, put on my sneakers, and the next thing I remember, he grabbed me by the neck and slammed me to the ground." What we didn't see in that video, she explained in court, was this. "I stayed down on the floor, covering my face with my hands. I just laid there. I didn't want him to do more damage to my face. It felt like the safest thing I could do. Then he started dragging me around the corner," meaning back into the room. Interestingly, Officer Israel Flores, who responded to the call at the hotel that night, testified that back in 2016, he was working as a security guard. Under Sean Combs' intense stare in court, Flores recounted how Combs tried to bribe him with a stack of cash to keep the incident quiet. Flores said Cassie kept repeating only one thing at the time: "I just want to leave." During his testimony, several photos were shown to the court, images taken at the hotel after the chaos Combs had caused. One in particular stood out. Flores described it. Cassie Ventura was lying next to a shattered vase of flowers. She was, in his words, in terrible shape, with a large black eye, but she told him repeatedly that she didn't want the police involved, she just wanted to get out of there. Cassie also mentioned a few more names during her testimony. For example, she said that Tony Fletcher, the former executive at Bad Boy Records, Diddy's label, would sometimes book hotel rooms for the freak-off parties. Other times, Cassie herself was responsible for making the bookings. She also revealed that she used the alias Jackie Starr, while Sean Combs would often use the names Frank White or Frank Black when booking the rooms. Another witness in the case, a survivor of Diddy's abuse, testified in court under a pseudonym. In the documents, she is referred to as Jane, following the convention of Jane Doe. According to her testimony, in 2020, Sean Combs coerced her into having unprotected sex with escorts. During opening statements on Monday, Emily Johnson described the incident, stating that Combs violently assaulted Jane, hitting her in the face. She curled up on the ground, and he continued to beat her even more aggressively. So that's yet another survivor who came forward with testimony. There's a very common question that comes up, and while it's not entirely correct, I think it's important to address it clearly. It's about why Cassie agreed to accept the settlement money from Diddy as compensation for all the trauma she experienced. Let's break it down. Remember, she initially approached him with a book manuscript. She wanted to publish a memoir about their relationship and how it affected her. Eventually, they reached a settlement to keep the book from being released. She said herself that the amount was not $30 million, but $20 million. The whole situation was resolved in one day, after she sent him the draft in 2023 and he didn't respond. So she filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit triggered everything. It set off a chain reaction that ultimately led to a federal investigation into Diddy's crimes. And that's an entirely different level, way beyond disputes over memoirs or public image. When you're a witness or victim in a federal criminal case, you can't just decline to testify. You get subpoenaed. And at that point, personal settlements or book deals no longer matter. These are federal crimes, so I hope that clears up the misunderstanding about why she's still testifying after accepting a financial settlement. Honestly, even if she had taken the money and still decided to testify, which legally isn't how this works, morally, I wouldn't see anything wrong with that either. Don't worry about Diddy. In her own words, "If I never had to have freak-offs, I would have had agency and autonomy, and I wouldn't have had to work so hard to get it back." What was going on with Cassie's career at that time? She said she was earning between $7,000 and $20,000 for hosting events at Los Angeles clubs and also worked as a model, meaning she was capable of supporting herself. But Diddy's control, his refusal to let her go, his thirst for power, that's exactly what abusers aim for when they take back gifts or seize someone's belongings out of anger, jealousy, or spite. Cassie talked about situations like that, how he would show up and take her things. She even named Diddy's bodyguard, D-Rock, as the one who would come and collect her belongings on Diddy's orders. This same D-Rock was also the one who would track her down when she tried to hide from Diddy, attempting to leave him. So, again, the question, why didn't she just leave? I don't know how else to explain it other than to list everything that happened to her when she did try to leave, like the scene in the hotel, the one that happened to be caught on camera. But we don't know how many more scenes like that occurred in private. Or the fact that he allegedly ordered someone to blow up the car of Kid Cudi, who she was romantically involved with. He got jealous and literally wanted the man dead. It was just a matter of luck that it didn't happen. Cassie alleges that Sean Combs once threatened to blow up the car of rapper Kid Cudi after learning about their relationship. She stated that in 2012, Combs told her he wanted Kid Cudi to be at home when the car exploded. Later, Cudi's vehicle did in fact explode, right in his driveway. A representative for Kid Cudi later confirmed the incident, saying that yes, the explosion happened, but declined to comment on the accusations against Combs. In the next part of this documentary, we will include Kid Cudi's testimony, where he recalls that event in detail. His account is crucial, as he can corroborate Cassie's claims and highlight just how dangerous and unpredictable Sean Combs could be, someone who might very well have hired people to carry out violent threats. This pattern fits within the broader framework of a RICO case. Cassie described how Sean Combs not only threatened her and her loved ones, but also controlled her finances and, ultimately, her body. And so, when people ask, why didn't she just leave? They often overlook the massive real-world barriers to doing so. In this context, it's worth recalling statements from Dawn Richard, another accuser. In the indictment, she testified about the kind of language Sean Combs used when people got in his way. One quote stands out, "I end people." Cassie also named a few key individuals within Diddy's inner circle who, according to her, played an active role in covering up the aftermath of the so-called freak-off parties. These were two of his trusted aides, Christina Coram and Neil Dominique, both real-life personal assistants to Sean Combs. Cassie referred to Christina Coram as the primary organizer of the freak-off events, someone who not only helped clean up afterward, but also arranged the logistics of these sex parties from start to finish. From the planning process to ensuring Diddy was in the right mood, Christina reportedly managed everything. Christina knew a lot about my personal life, Cassie testified. She added that Coram was deeply involved, not just as a passive assistant, but as someone actively orchestrating and enabling what happened. Many observers have drawn a chilling comparison. If Jeffrey Epstein had Ghislaine Maxwell as his accomplice, then Christina Coram could very well be seen as the Ghislaine to P. Diddy. Although some high-level executives are mentioned in the broader indictment, no names have been officially disclosed. As of now, Christina Coram has not been charged, but it's highly likely she will be subpoenaed to testify as the case unfolds. We'll return to this thread in the next part. There's a reason why the name Christina Coram felt so familiar to me. I was sure I'd seen it somewhere before, and then it hit me. Christina Coram is also mentioned in the legal documents filed by producer Lil Rod Rodney Jones, who has his own lawsuit against Diddy, accusing him of sexual misconduct and harassment. And right here, on this exact page from his legal complaint, we see Christina Coram's name appear. It's not a coincidence. So, how can we sum up the first week of this trial? Of course, the most intense and revealing moments are still ahead. You'll hear about them in the next part. But we can already draw some early conclusions. Essentially, Diddy's defense team is flat out denying all of Cassie's allegations, especially her claims that she was coerced into acts against her will. They presented text messages, chat records, and years of communication between Cassie and Diddy to try to argue that she was a willing participant, that this lifestyle was something she embraced. The defense focused heavily on questions like, did you want to take part in the freak-off parties? Did you help organize or plan them? Did you initiate contact or ask Diddy for these experiences? That's the official picture we've been given so far. But even from just this first week, we've got enough information to form a clear impression of what kind of case this is, and who the people involved really are. In the next episode, we'll hear more from Dawn Richard and new witnesses. If you found this video helpful, and trust me, I put a lot of effort into making it for you, please support it with a like and leave a comment saying, "Can't wait for part 2." That way, I'll know to release the next part right away. Thank you for watching till the end. Thank you for your support, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.